Greeting, comrades. It is I, James Durbinovich, here to talk to you about choice and recruiting. Well, in general, sales and everything else. See, I did this because I like the Russians and I love Dostoevsky, and I didn't have the right book at the time, but oh man, it's hot in there. I want to talk to you about choice, and I wanted to bring up the Russians because it reminded me of the old Soviet stories where you'd go into a grocery store and they only had one kind of bread on the shelf. And when the Soviets came over to the United States, they'd be running these horrible videos that showed all the crime and how terrible we were, and then they'd show a picture inside a supermarket, and the Russians would see it and they'd go, "What is all that stuff? What is that place?" They couldn't conceive of a supermarket. It's funny because the Russians were unhappy because they only had one choice, and it was get your potatoes, get your bread, get your milk, or get nothing. The Americans, funny enough, were also unhappy because we had too much choice. See, they figured out that if you go into a grocery store and you see too many things, you're not happy because your brain can't figure out. You're not sure that I get the right kind of peanut butter, Peter Pan creamy, or should I go with the Smart Balance Rich Roast creamy? Which one's better? Well, this one is flaxseed oil, and should I get the crunchy kind too? Maybe I should buy all three. I've got 3 kinds of peanut butter. I've got some almond butter downstairs in my house. The problem is if you have too much choice as human beings, you have to use too much brain power to pick it up. And when you're picking out something as simple as groceries, the idea that peanut butter, which they didn't even have in the Soviet Union, could actually make you unhappy should give you a little bit of a pause. See, what's happening is your brain tries to chunk things. It's one of the things I've really been thinking about lately. You move into a new house, you move to a new place. Your brain is spending a lot of processing power trying to figure out everything from where to go, what people look like, how they act, their accents are different. It's working overtime, which is why moving can seem so stressing. You move into a new house, you probably didn't know this, but you don't sleep as well for 2 or 3 months because you've got a part of you that's thinking every time you hear a sound creak, is that the house moving or is that someone coming to kill me? Until your brain identifies what's normal and not normal, until it chunks normal behavior, you're going to be unhappy, not going to sleep well. This is true for everything, and the reason it applies to recruiting is important because I'm a specialist. I'll go so far to say as I am expert at finding people. You give me a job, I go after it, I'm going to give you who you were looking for. It's never a question in my mind of who you should hire. It's always a question of which role actually makes more sense. So the options I give you aren't several people to fill the same role. They're always, where do you really want to go? These people will bring these different skills to the table. That's hard for some people to grasp. You sit down with someone, I talk to a client, and they say, well, give me 3 or 4 resumes. I'm thinking, why do you need 3 or 4 resumes? Because the truth is, I know that they need 3 or 4 resumes to feel happy about their choice. It doesn't matter if they pick the same one that I liked. What matters is that they have a mix between one choice and 20 choices. Because your brain can't really grasp that. Now, is that really the way to go about hiring, though? Should you be doing it based on how comfortable somebody is? If you're moving to another part, if you're doing some marketing and you give someone a series of designs, even though if the first design is the best, they want to see more because they're not sure. They want to test to see what else you have. So if you have 1 good design and 3 bad ones, you don't want to give them all 4 because what if they pick one of the bad ones? Choice matters. Choice matters to us, and unfortunately, we're not always advanced enough to understand it. And by the way, I'm as guilty as anybody else. You give me one thing, if I'm going to do it at all, I need to know immediately. We all have our little quirks in that. I overpay for things, so if you're ever selling me, it's nice to know I overpay because I just want to get it off the table and move on to something else. So I'm not saying that I'm different in that. I am saying that when it comes to recruiting and marketing and selling, the illusion of choice is important, but too much choice makes us unhappy. So how do you address that? Think of it this way. Part of the problem that we have, it's not just that, so you solve the problem of choice, you have that. But let's say you're looking at a resume. So I sit down with someone and they had someone leave for a job, right? So they've got on their hand the resume of the person that left. This is Bill. Bill's been there for 7 years. They went and looked at his current job description, they wrote it down and say, this is what Bill does. What's the problem with that? Bill's been there 7 years. This was Bill's resume when he started. This is Bill's resume now. Which one of these do you think that people are going to go to when they're trying to hire someone to replace Bill? This one, the current one, even though this is the one that they used to hire for the job. Problem is, sometimes you'll get them to go back to the job description, not realizing this is the new one. Well, that's a very bad deal. That takes a lot of time. The problem here is that you can't replicate 7 years of experience. The problem here is you have to replicate 7 years of experience. So when you're looking to figure out who to place, you've got a series of issues. One is what you think you're looking for. There's no record of how you got there. There's no way to write, hey, this is what Bill learned over that time. Bill picked up this skill because Sam left, and so Bill took on those different jobs. The market changed. There's no way to describe what's going on with that. So you're left with trying to understand how someone got to be good at a job. And then when you do find the perfect candidate, oh my God, did the exact same thing for competitor A. Now you want to find 3 of those people? I can find you 3 entry-level people. I can find you 3 old Bills. How am I going to find you 3 new Bills? Luckily, candidates don't necessarily have this problem, but it's definitely something you should be thinking about in terms of writing up a job description. All I can say is, in my personal experience, that if you want something done fast, I can do it fast. When I do a job search fast, people are never satisfied. They're never satisfied. If you do a sourcing project and you go to them and you spent 14 hours in a row without sleep using Red Bull, staying up all night, deliver them 150 awesome names, and you give it to them the next day, they don't want to pay for it. They figure, how good could it be? If you do that same 14 hours over 2 weeks and come back to them, they're ecstatic. Does that make any sense? So what's the point? The point is that peanut butter is delicious. The Russians write good literature. And most of the ways that we determine how to hire people, they make about as much sense as the Soviet Union did. Have a good day.